So, let's go. Number 1, a piece of SpaceX. Right now, while you're sitting here, there is a dead rocket falling toward the moon. Not an asteroid. Not a comet. Not some ancient chunk of the early solar system that's been drifting since before the dinosaurs. A rocket. One of ours. And it has a brand name on it. It's the upper stage of a SpaceX Falcon 9. About 40 feet long, roughly 10,000 pounds of empty metal, an aluminum tank with a burnt engine bell hanging off one end. No fuel left. No radio. No one flying it. It is, in every meaningful sense, garbage. And it is aimed by pure accident and at another world. Here's how it got up there. On January 15th, 2025, that Falcon 9 lifted off carrying 2 moonlanders stacked inside its nose. It did its job perfectly. It flung both landers on their way to the moon, and then, like every upper stage, it was finished. Used. Discarded. Most of the time these things either burn up in Earth's atmosphere or drift off into a lonely orbit around the sun where they can't bother anyone. This one didn't do either. It got stuck in a weird wobbling loop out past the moon, and for the next 19 months, nobody was watching it closely. It just tumbled out there in the dark, silent, forgotten, slowly having its path bent by forces you'll meet later in this video. And then somebody did the math, and the math said, this piece of junk is not going to drift forever. It's going to hit the moon, on a specific day, at a specific hour. This coming Wednesday, August 5th, 2026. Sit with that for a second. Everything you've ever heard about things hitting the moon is about deep time. Craters that formed 1 billion years ago. Impacts from a solar system that was still figuring itself out. This is not that. This is a thing that was on a launch pad in Florida last year. You maybe saw the launch. You maybe cheered for it. And now it's about to punch a hole in the moon. And we've had weeks of warning. And there is absolutely nothing anyone is going to do about it. That's the part that should get your attention. Not that space is dangerous, that the danger, this time, is signed by us. Number 2, the whodunit. Here's where it gets uncomfortable, because this exact story has been told once before, and last time everyone got it wrong. Rewind to 2015. A telescope spots a faint object out near the moon and gives it a placeholder name, a string of letters and numbers, nothing dramatic. Astronomers work backward, trying to figure out what it is, and they land on an answer that feels obvious. A SpaceX Falcon 9 had launched a spacecraft toward deep space that same February. The timing fit, the orbit fit, case closed. It's a SpaceX rocket. For 7 years, that's what everyone believed. And in early 2022, when they realized this object was going to crash into the moon, the headlines wrote themselves. A SpaceX rocket is going to hit the moon. Elon Musk's space junk is about to leave a scar on another world. You can picture the outrage. Except it wasn't true. A scientist at a NASA lab went back and actually checked where that SpaceX spacecraft had traveled, and the numbers didn't line up. The rocket everyone was blaming had never even gone near the moon. The man who'd first made the identification looked again, and then he did something rare. He admitted he'd been wrong. Publicly. For 7 years. So then, whose rocket was it? The trail led somewhere else entirely. The object was a Chinese booster left over from a mission to loop a capsule around the moon back in 2014. The country it belonged to denied the rocket was theirs. But the trajectory and the chemistry of the metal, read straight off the reflected sunlight, told the story clearly enough. It hit the moon on March 4th, 2022. And it left something that still doesn't make sense. Not one crater. Two overlapping holes, side by side, as if two things hit at almost the same instant. On Earth you'd shrug. A rock breaks apart coming through the air. But the moon has no air. Nothing pulls a single object into two pieces on the way down, which means that dead rocket was carrying something extra on its far end, something heavy, something nobody ever admitted was there. So keep that in your head as we go. The last time the world pointed at SpaceX for hitting the moon, it was pointing at the wrong rocket. And the right rocket turned out to be hiding a secret. This time is different. This time, they've checked and rechecked, and the label is correct. This time, it really is a piece of SpaceX, which almost makes it stranger. Number 3, we know exactly where. Think about how impacts normally work. Something you never saw coming, arriving from a direction nobody was watching, at a moment nobody predicted. That's the whole horror of asteroids. The randomness. The idea that the universe can reach out and end things without an appointment. This is the opposite of that. And honestly, the opposite is somehow worse. We know the day. August 5th. We know the time, down to the second, somewhere around 2:34 in the morning, Eastern Time. We know the place. A spot on the western edge of the moon, near an old crater named after Einstein, on the sunlit side where the light is falling. Someone sat at a computer, tracked a dark tumbling piece of trash across empty space, and pinned its death to a single point on a map of another world. That's the turn in this whole story, if you're paying attention. We tend to think of space as chaos, as the one place where humans still don't get a vote. But this is a collision we made, that we saw coming, that we can predict to the minute. We built the thing, we left it up there, we calculated exactly where it would fall, and we're just going to let it happen and watch the clock. The prediction has been nudged and refined over and over because tracking a dead rocket is genuinely hard. It's dark. It tumbles. It reflects almost no light. Every new night of observations shifts the answer a little. But the answer keeps pointing at the same corner of the moon on the same morning. So, there's no drama of the unknown here. No brave last-minute mission. No countdown where somebody might save the day. Just a date on a calendar, circled, and a rock the size of the moon waiting to take a hit it cannot feel and will not remember. And a species clever enough to know precisely when it's coming, and apparently fine with doing nothing. Number 4, the hole it punches. Now picture the moment itself. That rocket is not drifting gently at the end. It's moving at about 5,400 miles an hour, fast enough to cross the United States in under half an hour. And at that speed, physics stops being polite. You might think a 40-foot rocket makes a 40-foot dent. It doesn't work like that. When something hits that fast, the metal doesn't crumple, it doesn't bounce, it doesn't even really stay solid. All of that speed becomes energy in a fraction of a second, and that energy has to go somewhere. So part of the rocket simply vaporizes, part of the moon vaporizes with it. And the ground gets blown outward in a ring. The result is a hole far bigger than the thing that made it. The estimates put this crater at around 90 feet across and 16 feet deep. The truck-sized rocket digs a hole the length of a blue whale. That's the secret of these impacts. The crater isn't shaped by how big the object is. It's shaped by how much energy it's carrying. And the total energy here comes out to about 3 tons of TNT, which sounds enormous, and on Earth it would flatten a building. But the moon? The moon doesn't even notice. It's been absorbing hits like this and far, far worse for 4.5 billion years. Its whole face is a scar map of things that ended against it. One more dead rocket is a pinprick. Here's the strange part. That crater will be too small to see from Earth. Even with a good telescope, you will not find it. It's real, it's fresh, it's ours, and to your eye, it might as well not exist. The only things that will ever get a clear look at it are the spacecraft we already have circling the moon, quietly mapping every mark on the surface. They'll drift over that patch of ground, and where there was nothing, there'll be a brand new wound, and they'll be the only witnesses that matter. Number 5. The plume. Here's the twist you might not expect. A lot of scientists are not dreading this. They're excited, because when that rocket hits, it's going to throw up a fountain. A tall, slow curtain of pulverized moon punched straight up out of the ground and hanging there, catching the sunlight before it falls back in perfect silence. And inside that fountain is material that has been buried, untouched for who knows how long. Stuff you normally can't get to without landing and digging. For once, the universe is handing us a free experiment. We know the mass of the thing that's hitting, we know its speed, we know almost exactly when and where. That almost never happens with a natural impact where you're lucky to catch a flash. This time, telescopes can be aimed and ready before it even arrives, watching for what comes flying out. We've actually done a version of this on purpose. Back in 2009, NASA took a spent rocket stage and deliberately crashed it into a shadowed crater near the moon's south pole then flew a second spacecraft right through the plume to sniff what got kicked up. What they found changed everything. Water. Real water locked in the lunar dirt, more than 100 kilograms of it thrown up in a single shot. The moon we'd called bone dry for decades turned out to be hiding ice in its dark corners. That crash was planned for years. This one is an accident we happened to see coming. But the payoff could be the same kind of thing. A team of astronomers has already put out a call, rallying observatories all over the world to point their instruments at the western edge of the moon on Wednesday morning and record every second of it. So yes, it's junk. Yes, it's careless. But we might learn something real from it anyway. That's the weird mercy of this story. Even our garbage, when it slams into another world at thousands of miles an hour, has something to teach us. Number 6, you can't watch it. Now, for the disappointing part, and you should hear it before you set an alarm. You are not going to see this, not with your eyes, not with your backyard telescope, not with the good binoculars your uncle swears by. The problem is where it lands. The rocket is hitting the sunlit side of the moon, the part that's already bright. A flash needs darkness to stand out against. Set off a firework at noon and you barely see it. Set it off at midnight and it's the whole sky. This impact is happening in the equivalent of lunar noon on ground that's already glowing, which means the flash gets swallowed by the daylight around it. On top of that, the crater is tiny by Earth viewing standards. Even the observatories that catch it will be pulling faint data out of the glare, not watching a dramatic explosion. It's the kind of thing you confirm in the numbers afterward, not the kind of thing you gasp at through an eyepiece. And even if it were a bright night-side flash, only part of the planet would be facing the right way at the right moment. The best seats belong to the eastern side of North America and a big stretch of South America, the places where the moon happens to be up and in view at that hour. Everyone else is just on the wrong side of a spinning Earth. So this is in a way the most hyped moon crash you'll never actually witness. Actually, a real event on a real schedule, on a world you can literally see in the sky. And the show is completely invisible to you. All you get is the knowing. Somewhere out there, at that exact minute, a piece of a rocket you might have watched launch is ending against the moon, and the sky gives you nothing to prove it happened. Number 7, one little burn. Here's the detail that turns this from a curiosity into something that should actually bug you. This was avoidable, easily. Remember, after that Falcon 9 dropped off its 2 landers, its job was done. At that point, there was a simple choice. You can give the empty stage one last little push, a short burn, and send it out into a wide orbit around the sun, where it becomes just one more harmless speck in a solar system full of them. Rockets do this all the time. It's routine, it's cheap, it's the responsible thing. This one didn't get that push. It just got let go, left to tumble in that messy region between the Earth and the moon. And out there, forces you never think about started working on it. Gravity, obviously. The Earth pulls, the moon pulls, the sun pulls. A dead rocket in that zone gets tugged in a dozen directions at once, and its path turns into a slow, chaotic scribble. But there's a stranger force at play too. Sunlight. Actual light pushing on the metal. It sounds impossible, like something too gentle to matter. But light carries a tiny pressure, and when you're an empty tank with a lot of surface and almost no weight, that pressure adds up over months. The sun literally nudged this rocket toward its death. None of that would have mattered if it had been given that one small burn at the start. A few seconds of thrust 19 months ago, and this whole story never happens. No impact, no crater, no countdown. And here's the thing. Nobody broke a rule. Because there isn't one. There is no law that says you have to safely dispose of a rocket stage once it's finished out near the moon. It's not required. It's not enforced. It's left up to whoever launched it, and this time, it just didn't happen. This crater isn't going to exist because of fate, or bad luck, or the cold indifference of the cosmos. It's going to exist because of a gap. A missing sentence in a rulebook nobody has written. Number 8. Nobody owns the moon. So if a piece of SpaceX cracks into the moon this week, who's responsible? Who do you even send the bill to? And the answer is nobody. Legally, genuinely, nobody. The rules that govern space were written in 1967 in the middle of the Cold War, back when spaceflight meant 2 governments and nothing else. There's a treaty. It says space belongs to everyone and no country can claim the moon. A few years later, they added another agreement about liability, saying that if your space object damages another country's space object, you have to pay for it. Reasonable enough. But look closely at what that covers. Damage to somebody else's property. If your satellite smashes into my satellite, we have a framework. What it does not cover is this: cratering the moon itself. Because the moon doesn't belong to anyone, there's no owner to file the complaint, no property that got damaged in the legal sense, no one withstanding to say you can't do that. You can slam a dead rocket into another world, and there is simply no one to answer to. And nobody ever wrote the next chapter. There are no rules of the road for the space between here and the moon, no traffic laws, no cleanup requirements, no referee. The whole system was built for a world of two careful superpowers, and that world is gone. Now there are companies, dozens of them, launching constantly, and they're all operating in a legal blank space, doing things the people who wrote the treaty could never have imagined. So this impact isn't just a crater, it's a stress test. It's the universe quietly asking a question we've been avoiding. Who's in charge up there? And the honest answer right now is that nobody is. Number 9, this won't stay rare. Now zoom out, because a single dead rocket hitting the moon almost sounds quaint. A one-off. A weird bit of trivia. It isn't, it's a preview. For most of history, the space between Earth and the moon was empty. A few missions crossed it, and that was it. An accidental moon impact was the kind of thing that happened maybe once a decade, if that. But look at what's coming. Giant new rockets designed to fly to the moon over and over, a wave of government missions planning to put people back on the surface, and a whole crowd of private companies, more every year, each one racing to land its own machines up there. Every one of those launches leaves something behind. Spent stages, dead landers, hardware that ran out of fuel or lost contact and just kept going. All of it drifting through the same stretch of space, tugged by the same gravity and the same sunlight that steered this rocket into the moon. And here's the uncomfortable math. We can barely track any of it. Our ability to watch objects basically runs out not far above Earth. Past that, in the deep zone near the moon, it's mostly dark. We don't have good eyes out there. We're filling that region with more and more stuff while being less and less able to see where it all is. So the thing happening on Wednesday, the thing that feels rare and strange and headline-worthy right now, is on track to become normal, ordinary, background noise. 10, 20 years from now, a rocket hitting the moon might not even make the news. And that shift, from once-a-decade oddity to routine event, is the part scientists are actually worried about. Not this crash, the frequency curve behind it. Number 10, the warning shot. Here's why any of this actually matters. This time, it's junk. It's hitting empty rock, a lonely patch near an old crater where the worst thing it can hurt is the surface itself. Nobody's up there. Nothing's up there. It's a clean miss in every way that counts. But we are not planning to leave the moon empty. The whole point of everything coming next is to put things there that matter. Habitats, power stations, communication relays, supply depots, and people. Actual human beings living and working on that surface under a sky full of our own uncontrolled, barely tracked debris. Think about this crash again with that in mind. A dead rocket nobody was steering, falling on a path nobody chose, landing on a spot we could only predict at the last minute, with no rule to prevent it and no one to answer for it. Now imagine that same event years from now, with a base sitting somewhere on that surface. The odds are tiny. The moon is huge. But tiny is not zero, and we're about to spend decades making that number bigger. That's what this is. Not a disaster. A rehearsal. A quiet little demonstration of exactly how something ends up coming straight for the moon with our name on it. And exactly how little stands in its way. We have reached the point where we schedule our own collisions with other worlds, mark them on a calendar, and simply watch them happen. This time, nothing was underneath. The alarm scientists are sounding isn't about this rocket. It's about the day something is.